Times an appropriate greeting to you and welcome back to the channel. Today's interview is with a truly inspirational YouTuber who since the birth of his channel has continued to amaze the community with his armies, reports and epic board builds. Welcome Luke Barker, strikingscorpion 82.
Hello, good evening.
Thank you for joining us in the community spotlight.
It's good to be with you. No, thanks for having me. Thank you.
So this is a hobby interview designed for people when they're locked in now at the current COVID-19 situation, just to sit back, relax, pull out some paint and listen along. So I've got two sets of questions, A and B, 1 and 2. A is mainly the standard questions I've asked everyone, and then B are more designed towards yourself.
Yep.
Are you ready?
Yes, ready when you are.
Can you tell the people a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, just as an introduction, I've been into Warhammer 40,000 for a good while. Started when I was 14, secondary school, inspired by a friend that brought a 2nd edition rulebook into my technology class. I used to not pay attention much in class and flick through that book. I was inspired by the artwork first of all, and then got drawn into the hobby through the artwork initially, and then got drawn into collecting the models from there. And then had that as a hobby for, along with sort of historical wargaming as well. It's been a big part. I wouldn't really cover that very much on the channel, but that was my background would be mostly historical wargaming, all sorts of different gaming systems, along with my brother as well. And then when I left school and that group of friends was broken up, sort of took a break from the hobby. And then got back into it again in my early 20s. I think that's 5th edition. Got back into the hobby then, and that was through the Tau Empire. I hadn't seen that faction before, so that drew me back into the hobby. James started collecting, getting Ultramarines and Astra Militarum, and then we just started reintroducing Warhammer 40,000 back at our War Games Club SSWG that I was still at, and so really that's the history of my 40k. I've been playing since then. 2nd edition, then took a break back in 5th edition, and then all the way up to 9th, just about heading in that direction.
What type of hobbyist are you? A painter, a collector, gamer, or a bit of a mix?
I would be a mix, to be honest. I really enjoy my painting. I'm painting out Harlequins at the moment. Collecting Harlequins at the moment. I very much enjoy the painting aspect of the hobby. Very much indeed. And then collecting, you know, putting an army together and choosing units and putting army lists together. Enjoy that a lot as well. And then actually playing the games, very enjoyable. So it's very difficult to answer that one. I'd say all three are just as much.
So what game systems do you play? Well, you've alluded to historicals as well. Is
Yes.
it mainly Games Workshop, or is it the smaller scale Napoleonic?
Yeah, so obviously 40k on the channel, and that's mostly what I'm playing at the moment. But over the years I've played Warhammer Historical, Warhammer Ancients, 1/1200th Napoleonic ships, naval battles, Trafalgar, and then because I went to a club, SSWG War Games Club, there's all sorts of different gaming systems going on there. So there's a lot of historical players, and you'd end up joining in different games going on from every type, ancients through to American Civil War, World War II, World War One, as every type of variety. I'm big into games, you see, in general. So if there's a game that looks good, I'd happily join in with pretty much anything. So, but I haven't done as much historical stuff. 40k would take up most of my hobby time now.
What advice would you give someone just starting out of the hobby, or maybe your younger self now you've been involved for a while?
Yeah, not to dive in, I would say. I know a lot of people that would dive into the hobby and then dive back out again very quickly. So I would say, you know, go and take a measured approach. Think carefully about what you want to collect, and then try and discipline yourself to, you know, buy a start collecting box and then assemble and paint the whole box and finish it completely finished, and you'll get a lot more enjoyment out of it that way. And I think that's a good start out for anyone getting into the hobby.
You've alluded to already about having an extended break out of the hobby. How did you get back in?
It was through James, actually. We were playing. Now, I've never stopped wargaming since I was very young. Always been into that. I remember the earliest memories of model kits was sitting on my dad's knee painting a model kit biplane, and then just gradually got into FX kits and going all the way through to tanks and things, and getting into wargaming from a very young age. So I've always been wargaming, but that break from 40k, got back into it when James started looking into. He bought a copy of White Dwarf magazine and was looking through the articles and the battle reports, and then I flicked through it, and then I said to him, "What's that faction?" Because I hadn't seen the Tau before. I just liked the look of them, and then just started buying a few models, and it just grew. Both of us, within say a year or so, grew both of our armies, Ultramarines and Tau, up to about Apocalypse size, and then we kept it secret. We didn't tell anybody at the War Games Club at SSWG, and then one night we put on an Apocalypse game, and no one had ever seen any of the stuff, none of the terrain, none of the armies, and we just took over this whole room with about a 12-foot table full of models. So it surprised a few people.
It's epic.
So,
what's the best part about the hobby for you?
It's very difficult. There's a lot of aspects to it I like very much. Yeah, obviously the artwork's a massive thing for Games Workshop, massive inspiration, incredible artwork, really is inspirational stuff. The models are superb, and they're a joy to paint. So I enjoy that very much as well. And then whatever edition it's been, I've always enjoyed playing the game. An 8th edition has been a very good edition, but just all of it really. It's just an all-round package, I think, I would say. Yeah, just the whole system is good.
So on the flip side, what don't you like about the hobby? What could be improved?
I honestly don't know. I think it's pretty good. Some people complain about the cost, maybe, but I try and compensate for that a little bit. Obviously, you can use. I've done a video about it actually. You can use discount war games stores. I would actually use eBay a fair bit and try and rescue models and things. Sometimes some of the models are reclaimed models that have been resprayed and repainted, so that you can do that. You can get a good deal from someone. Sometimes at the club, I'd buy stuff off people that someone's trying to get rid of an army, and you can actually get some units pretty, very cheap. And I'd be quite disciplined selling off spare stuff. I've got a kit that I'm not using, or bits on sprues, or if you only used a few models from a kit, I'll quickly try and sell it, and that can help compensate for your costs. And also always try and make use of birthday and Christmas presents. Even though I'm 37, still do that, and it is good. It helps. It does help a lot when you do that. So it's better than socks for Christmas.
Yeah. Or Link's Africa sets.
I have got loads of those.
Yeah. I'm 35 myself. My grandmother still sends me £5 and a Link's spray and body wash.
Oh no, I had a great aunt. She's passed away now, but every year she bought me a £10 Games Workshop voucher, and with a Games Workshop card, with the artwork on the front. That was just the best. And that was when I was 14, 15, 16. I always look forward to that coming through. So all those little tips actually help to offset the cost to a degree. And there's a lot of hobbies that are a lot more expensive, so you can just sort of.
How do you deal with burnout or a lack of hobby mojo?
Yeah, if I'm painting something and it's too much of a chore, like you're getting sick of painting something, I might stop. Because I've got a number of armies now, I'll maybe switch between different armies and do it that way. I'll paint a couple of units up and then switch factions. That keeps things nice and fresh. But for the hobby in general, I might take a break from it for a few days or a week, but it wouldn't usually be much longer than that. I've never really totally burnt out from it. Or I might switch systems. I might play a different, I might play a historical game for a while. but not fully blown out. And because when I stopped, I was playing when I was 14, and then took that break. But I just switched to other gaming systems, so I've never burnt out from the hobby itself. So I don't know what the secret is to that, but
yeah.
So
what keeps you in the hobby?
Again, just the all-round package really of Warhammer 40,000. Just the factions, the armies, the constant, because it's like warfare. You're always adapting and trying to improve, and so it's a continuous thing. There's a lot of momentum with the hobby. I suppose Games Workshop, that's the way they operate, isn't it? Continuous movement with it, so it's quite fresh. It doesn't stagnate. I know some people might complain about new books and editions and so on, but yeah, any business has to reinvent itself and repackage and re-release, otherwise things will stagnate. You have to keep moving, so that keeps it fresh and interesting. You know, a nice new codex comes out and it's exciting to get a hold of that and to flick through it and adapt your armies and stuff. So yep.
Do you plan out projects, armies, or do you just get sucked in with the rule of cool and wanting to collect the whole codex?
Yeah, I suppose I usually so I would I'd have a faction going around in my head, and then I think, yeah, I'd love to collect that one day, and then the opportunity might come up, and then I might buy a box. But usually I try and it's sort of a balance. You'll see it on the channel. I try and have a balance between narrative and units that I like, and then try and make it work on a, you know, a competitive edge as well. So a balance between the two. So what was the question again? Sorry.
Do you
Sorry.
Do you plan out your armies? For example, do you build towards say a 2,000 point list, or do you build, say, I need a rough force of 3,000 points to make multiple lists of 2,000 points?
Oh no, yeah, I'd head for a 2,000 point list. We're running 2,000 points at the moment. It may drop to 1,750. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'd usually end up doing 2,000 point list, and then naturally you'll end up start dropping units and including others in, or taking extra of a certain type. So the collection usually grows to about 2,500, 3,000 usually. But that just sort of naturally happens as you go along. So yeah, it's quite a. But I wouldn't impulse buy too much. I would really think it through before I even start a faction. And if I still really want to collect it, and it's been months, even perhaps years, that's a definite sign that I'm going to get into it. Like Harlequins, so I started getting Harlequins when that box came out. One with the Death Watch, that was a couple of years ago. That was one of the early 8th edition sets, I think.
Yeah, Death Mask, yeah.
Death Mask, yeah. Ended up buying about 6 sets of that to get my Harlequin army.
Oh my God.
And then sold the Death Watch stuff, you see, so I virtually got my Harlequin army for not very much at all. But then that's been shelved for since that box set's come out. I've only just started painting it, but I still really love Harlequins, so that's because I chewed it over, you know, love the models, and so that momentum's still there, that desire to paint them up still there. It's not, that love for them still not lost. So
if your budget was unlimited but you could only buy one army, what would it be?
That's one of your questions. I don't know if I could answer that one. It's very, very difficult, that.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. So virtually all the armies that I like, I sort of have at the moment. There's a couple of others, but pretty much, you know, and all the armies that I have, I really like all of them still. So I think that's, you know, I'm quite happy with that. That it's not, because I know players that people will collect an army, paint it up, and then they end up hating it and they'll sell it. So I can't get my head around that, but I might shelve an army for a while. You know, they'll fall out of favour for a while. Like my Dark Elder, they were shelved for a while, sadly, and then got back into them again, and then really like the army again now, sort of just roundabouts. And then an army that I'd liked a while ago, it sort of just gets shelved for a bit. But you're just sort of trying to rotate the armies around and stuff. So,
what do you hope to improve about your hobbying in the future?
Don't know about that one. Not sure. Perhaps different basing techniques. Try out some different things. Because there's some amazing basing work that's done for different factions, you know, by other painters and so on. Mine are quite standard basing techniques that I use, so I could improve with that. And I'd like to expand on my terrain. I've got a fair bit of my own personal collection. There's plenty of stuff at the club. My own personal collection, I've got some ideas to improve that as well. So,
has anyone inspired your hobby, style, or life? For example, painting techniques, or, as you said, basing techniques.
Yeah. Well, when I was sort of 14, 15, 16, it was Mike McVeigh. Do you remember him from the White Dwarf magazines?
Yes, yeah.
And his dioramas, I loved his dioramas. His stuff stood out, and that was a real inspiration back then. So that inspired me for my painting. And obviously the heavy metal studios as well. You know, I'd often buy sets and try and copy exactly how they'd painted up stuff. So they're an inspiration. And then just mixing with other wargamers as well. So at the club, people painting up different armies for different gaming systems. So they were often an inspiration as well. And actually, I remember I used to collect, well, still collect, but one of my early armies that I collected was Blood Angels. And that was when you bought the lead torsos and the plastic arms. It was back at that stage. But I submitted a Devastator squad to my local Games Workshop store in a painting competition, and one of the staff there was very encouraging. He was saying, "You've done really well," and he says, "I'll show you some different techniques and stuff." So, and that inspired me, that someone had, you know, member, because I was only like 14, 15, and you got a member of staff that's maybe in his 30s, and he was, you know, a really good painter, and he was saying, "Oh, that's really good. You know, keep going. Here's some ways to improve what you've done." That was an inspiration as well. So just little things like that can actually have quite an impact.
So thank you very much for answering part A. Let's jump into part B.
No problem.
What was the catalyst between starting Striking Scorpion 82?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back now. It was just for fun. So I'm trying to think of the. So we filmed. I watched a little bit of 40k stuff on YouTube. Didn't really know about mini wargaming, but there was a guy that came up. This is going back like 9 years. I mean, I started the channel in 2011, November 2011, and there wasn't very much around at all at that time. But there was a guy called Wargamer Fritz, and he had Necrons, ELDAR army, and a couple of his, it was mostly chat videos and hobby videos, but he had a couple of videos where he put pictures of his armies in a battle. It was a battle report, but it was a couple of photographs, maybe like a couple of dozen photographs of the battle, some text, and then some music. And they're only like 5-10 minutes long, those videos, but I remember watching a couple of those, and it was really inspiring. So we were then playing some 40k at the SSWG War Games Club, and I started to take photographs of some of our apocalypse battles, and then I wanted to describe the battle and put it to music, just like Wargamer Fritz had done. So that's the very first video. If you go back to the first video on my channel, you'll see some copyrighted music, so it's not monetized. But you'll see photographs of an ELDAR versus Tyranids battle report, with all music in the background and telling the story of the battle that took place. And that got about 16,000 views. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. People are interested in that. So I thought, well, maybe I'll produce a little bit more. So I started doing like showcase videos of my models. So there's some just showcase videos, just music with photographs of the ELDAR. And then as I gradually expanded that out, and then just started getting comments from people saying, why could you do this? Could you do this? You know, what could we have more of this? What about a painting tutorial? And just started to grow naturally from there. Just mucking about though, it really was a lot of work for no real reward at the start for a long time, but just started to grow naturally from there. And I enjoyed doing it. So
from this hard work and dedication to your channel reports, you've been cited as an inspiration across the community in previous interviews I've conducted with guys on Tabletop Tactics and SM Battle Reports. your praise as the motivation behind their channel starting up and then pushing onto YouTube, producing their own reports. What was the drive at the start? Was it just a lack of anyone else doing it?
Yeah, I don't know, because difficult one really. There wasn't much around at all, and even if you, because I was just a few weeks ago, I was going back to looking on Mini Wargames channel, and I went back 8-9 years to see what kind of content they were putting out at the time, and even with them, it wasn't too much in regards to battle reports and stuff. But it was just for the feedback from comments and things, and just the way I could see a demand for battle reports for sure. That was standing out above the rest. And painting tutorials. There wasn't much in the way of painting tutorials either. So you'll see early on in the channel there was a fair bit of putting painting tutorials together and stuff. And then as it started to grow, you get a bit of reward from it. So I was using some of the monetization to fund my hobby. So that was, it was pretty good motivation to do it as well. And you're gradually building the videos up, and it starts to grow. Anything that grows is does motivate you a bit to see it growing. And then you don't want to leave it, because if you leave it, it'll just like a plant on your windowsill. If you don't water it, it'll die, and it's disappointing. So it just kept rolling. Wanted to keep it rolling because I enjoyed seeing it grow. So then it just grew naturally from there. Just a natural progression, and then just enjoyed that growth as it's developed.
Yeah, personally speaking, the most inspirational video that you produce that I enjoy isn't a battle report. It's actually the tutorial where you paint the armor containers.
Okay, right. Yes.
It sounds random because up until then I was pigeonholed into Games Workshop paint as the best, but then you pulled out the Army Painter spray, and I was like, the spray and the paint are exactly the same. It's like, and then I started investigating more into Army Painter and then Vallejo, and
right.
I've never looked back since.
No, and that's one of the big rewarding parts is when I get feedback from people saying, I was terrified of painting or never was good at painting, and then I followed your tutorial and now I'm really happy with the results. And you might see a picture, put in a picture on Instagram or something. That's really satisfying to see that, to see someone developing the hobby and to get achievements and stuff and from that. So it definitely inspires you to do more. So like with the Harlequins I'm working on at the moment, I hope to produce some painting tutorials for them. Because a lot of people wouldn't collect them because they are daunting. They're the toughest army I've painted, and I've thought about, do I do a technique that saves you having to put too much effort? But I'm going to actually try and copy the box art and try and produce that in a tutorial for people. But it's a challenge for sure. But if it helps some people out and they can produce like a real nice army, then that's definitely a rewarding part of doing the channel.
Does having to produce content on a regular basis affect your enjoyment in the hobby?
I try not to let it. I often get people saying, can you do Age of Sigmar? Can you do this? What about this? And I've just said, no, 40k is enough. So, the channel sort of runs at the pace of my own hobby. So I end up just doing, I end up working on an army that I'm working on anyway. And then it features in battle reports, which I would play games of it anyway, and so I've tried to keep it. I'm aware of that. I know a lot of people that have gone into the industry as a job and they've left the hobby and just got sick of it. So I've tried to learn from that and resist that. So I try and keep it at a pace and not let it expand to a point where it becomes a chore. Because I think that viewers would notice that, I think, if you're just churning out content for the sake of it. And so I'm sure Age of Sigmar is a great game and the models are amazing, but I try and put a limit on what I do just to enjoy what I have at the moment. So
with producing battle reports, there's an obvious chance of like missing a dice roll or having a misunderstanding of a rule where
every game.
How do you deal with critique and trolling, which sometimes happen in the YouTube comment section? How did you deal with it at the start, and then how do you deal with it, like, for example, now you've been producing for 8 years?
Yeah, so I think everyone's the same, because when I get someone that's in a challenge game and they haven't been on the channel before, I do warn them about the comment section, because it's open to the global public. And sometimes they'll panic, you know, they'll get negative comments and people don't know how to deal with it. I was the same at the start, negative comments, you know, what do you do? But you do sort of mellow after a while, and just really it's only, I don't know, you can break it down into, you get constructive criticism. So I've always tried to listen to even critics. And if you start to get a lot of people criticizing the same thing, then I try and listen to what they're saying. And then just take it with a pinch of salt. Try not to get personally offended over it. And some people can be very blunt and very rude. If it's really obnoxious stuff, if they cross that border, then I just delete the comments, because this doesn't help anybody. And try not to let it, if I delete it, it doesn't affect me as much, as in it's not stuck there on my videos. You know, it's not helping anybody, you know. And if someone's repetitively nasty, they just block them. So. But it doesn't affect me at all, to be honest. No. So, but that's that. I suppose that comes over the years. You just sort of mellow to it and stuff. But it is a shock at the start, bit of a shock to the system. But you just get used to it after a while.
Your boards are amazing and an inspiration to many wargamers over the years. How long does it take to plan out a board for a battle report?
Usually, to put a board together, it's usually about 20 to 30 minutes. Not very long. And then the planning, I usually plan it about 5 minutes before. I usually say, right, what are we going to do? You know, I pack a game down, and then we're going to play another battle the next day. And then I just sort of, if we're at the War Games Club, I'll look around and see what there is. And then just make it up as I go along, really. Just to choose a theme and then try and make it up. And look around for pieces to train that might match that theme. And then just patch it together, and you can just get some amazing boards just organically appear from that. But I wouldn't. I just let it sort of. I wouldn't plan too much in advance. The only ones who plan out perhaps a few days before, the general idea would be apocalypse games. I plan those out more. Yeah. If there's a big defense system to build up and stuff, they would take a bit more planning, because you're trying to match the narrative perhaps of a game. And how the whole battle's going to play out, you know, the deployment zones and where the barricades are going to be and stuff. So that needs a bit more planning. But I have a general plan in my head, and then I only really know how it's going to work out once I start putting stuff on the table.
Yeah, I'll post a link below in the comments for the Tyranids versus Imperial Guard battle, Apocalypse battle, which you did, which was amazing. That was a...
Which one? The early one, or the one we did a couple of years ago?
The one we did a couple of years ago, where there's like a circle. It's like an oval-shaped circle with a space in the middle, wasn't it?
I
believe that was an epic board.
Yeah, so we like those. I like the Fall of DAMNOS, the recent Apocalypse that we did. There was a fair bit of planning gone into that. We're very happy with how that one came out, because that was our first sort of narrative one, actually based on actual lore from 40k, which we actually enjoyed that more than the others, because you feel like you've immersed yourself in part of the 40k storyline. So I hope to do more of those in the future.
How do you match the armies which are going to be used in the battle report? Say, for example, you and your brother are going to play, we're playing Tyranids against Marines. Do you say, let's take a narrative list, or let's take a smash face list? Is this from experience now?
Yeah, so all the armies we try and do competitive fluff. So an army that matches the style of the faction, but you try and make it as competitive as you can, and without using Google and stuff. You know, just standard copy and paste lists, but try and invent your own ideas and what works. So you end up with like a semi-competitive army that's not going to be completely whitewashed on the table. But still, it represents the feel of that faction. And then as far as the matchups are concerned, usually just what's available at the time. Some armies aren't available at the moment, so it's just a case of just matching them together. And usually we try and do Imperial versus Xenos or Chaos. Try not to have too much Imperial versus Imperial stuff. Sometimes it may happen, just because we're doing a league now. Maybe we'll get Marines versus Space Marines. It just may have to happen, but not, you won't see that too often. Or you could just say it's a training exercise or something. So.
Yeah. You've moved on to a very unique league system with regard to battle reports on your channel. Was this a thought-out idea or a random light bulb above the head moment?
Yeah, it was. I'm always chewing through, thinking of ideas to make things better and what people would enjoy. And then the idea of a league, you know, most people follow a league of some kind, you know, like a sports league, wherever they are in the world, and, you know, or some international tournament of some kind. And when you've got a structure like that, you know, with finals and semi-finals and grand finals, there's always more hype and more interest and more tension with it. So why not transfer that over to 40k? And I found out as well, on the channel that a lot of people end up following different factions and characters. They get behind a certain army, so then you can watch it progress through the league as well. This is sort of our first year of doing a better structured league. We've sort of done league tables where armies try and get to the top, but this year it's more of a fairer system of running. All the armies are playing 3 games, and then there's a knockout stage to try and do a good structure, and the feedback from that's been good. And hopefully it'll build up intensity and hype as the season goes on, and it's refreshing, you know. At the end of the year we can just reset and start afresh.
Yeah.
Well, but I suppose that actually came, thinking back, that actually came from tournaments that we set up at club. So we were playing random games of 40k, and then naturally we said, why don't we start a league? So that actually came from casual leagues that we were playing at the club anyway. So
you produce a wide range of content across the channel: battle reports, tactics, product reviews, and some painting videos. Do you have a personal favourite?
Yeah, I say the battle reports, I guess. You enjoy playing the game, and then, you know, you can have a lot of fun moments and stuff during those games as well. So I enjoy the battle reports, and there's the Beat the Bear battle reports, which are on the Plus channel. I enjoy doing those. That's when I take a break from playing, and then James plays someone, and they turn into sort of banter battle reports, because the whole idea is that James gets beaten by this person. So you can, there's some entertaining games there, but just the general battle reports, really enjoy doing those. And then the Apocalypse games are good, but you never want to play 40k again after one of our Apocalypse. You usually play for about 12, 13 hours straight, and you just, you know, you just need a week's break after that usually. But
you are now, through the growth of the channel, able to call on a number of beautiful armies. Is there a unit out there which you would like to see a little push in the right direction in the new edition?
I have to say strikingscorpions, don't I? Maybe you knew I'd say that. Not really, no. It all sort of goes round in circles, doesn't it? Some units fall out of favour and then they come back again. Sort of got an idea of the way Games Workshop operate now with that. So, you know, one type of unit's not very good, and then it gets a buff, and then everyone's buying that unit. So I know it's all going to go round and round in circles. So not really, not at the moment. Oh yeah, there is a unit actually. Warp spiders.
Warp spiders, yeah.
Yeah, not very good at the moment. They used to be. I always used to like in 7th edition, deep striking behind James's tanks, hitting the rear armor, and pretty much taking him out every time. But now warp spiders wouldn't stand a chance of doing that. So hopefully they'll get better.
I think personally for me it's Vespids, Tau Vespids. I've always had a thing for the models, even though they're fine cast and everyone's like, ugh. But I think their time will come. I've got 30 of them, so.
All right, hold on to them then. I actually sold mine. I had 10.
You support your local club a lot, to mention it in your channel. How is the gaming community in your area?
It's Essex. I was originally based, and the gaming community is pretty good around there. And obviously you've got links to London. You know, you're not 40, 50 minutes away from London as well. But Essex is pretty good. There'll be a good number of clubs around. And you know, full credit to SSWG though. If it wasn't for that club and their continuous, it's an excellent club, and there's always something going on, and that's just kept me in the wargaming hobby. And if it wasn't for me joining them, there wouldn't be a strikingscorpion 82 channel. I wouldn't have been into the hobby as much. So full credit to them. You can't. A decent war games club is a great thing if you can find one.
Have you got any tips for people wanting to run a club?
Yeah, I looked at that question. I don't run a club myself, but the people that I know that do run it, you need to be good at organising for sure. You need to be very driven, because your clubs, even SSWG club, has gone up and down over the years with different troubles and issues that have come up, and they've just survived. But it's been through determination and drive to keep it going, and sometimes through very difficult situations, and a lot of patience as well. You know, with people, and things don't move along as quick, and you get dips in numbers and so on. So, but if you get someone there's a number of people at the club that are very driven and organised, and they put a lot of heart and soul into it, and that's what's kept the club going. So, you know, if you are going to start a club, don't start it lightly. It's a lot of commitment to it, but there's a good reward to it, though. You know, if you found a good war games club, you know, you get to enjoy that club, and you know, all the variety that's brought to it by different people.
Your brother's branched off to form JB Wargaming. Has the assistance you've been giving him, has it been a good side project for yourself away from the channel?
Yeah, and I've enjoyed it, because James does the Ultramarines and the Astra Militarum, and that's always been a gaping hole on my channel. And you know, two perhaps of the most popular factions, and so I thought, well, I'd started doing some stuff, but it really needed James to do it, so it's been good to bring him in to get him to start producing content. So he's there to fill those gaps for everybody, and just to add to the broader spectrum of the channel. So it's quite a natural thing that's happened, and it's good to branch off a little bit and to help James out and to get him growing and going with his own channel.
Yeah, our club personally is moving towards AERONAUTICA Imperialis.
Oh, right.
So I've been watching his stuff.
Okay, yes.
Really good to see that.
His stuff's incredible. I mean, the fleet that he's painted for the Guard is just unbelievable what he's done. Magnetized all the bombs. I mean,
that's
typical,
some work.
Typical what James is like. Yeah, it's really nice. So we're hoping maybe that I'd like to keep my channel 40k, and then there's Space Hulk over on the Plus channel. But what we may do is, if we do go off into specialist games like Aeronautica, and maybe Epic if it makes a return, because I always love that system and the scale of it, then James's channel may become more of a specialist games channel. So there's an area where we can put that up. You see, my channel's quite maxed out with the playlists and stuff. So James's channel might be an area for expansion into more specialist games. And he's already got loads of X-Wing videos on there and stuff, and so that might be what we do with James's channel.
Yeah, I'll post a link in the comment section below. Please go along and show him some love, please.
Thanks very much.
Have you ever been recognised in public in a non-gaming environment?
I haven't, no.
No? Okay.
Well, let me think now. No, not a non-gaming, no. If I walk into a Games Workshop store, then usually, and Warhammer World. But no, non-gaming, no, I'm just a normal guy, just a nerdy guy. Wouldn't be recognised. Have
you got any hints and tips for people wanting to start their own channel?
Yeah, well, maybe start the way I did. Just start for fun, and just don't expect too much. And then if it starts to grow, then you can choose either to leave it or to keep it growing. And then one of the big tips, and that was a tip that I was given by someone else, as probably advice on a YouTube video, but it was to listen to your feedback. Listen to what people tell you, what they like and what they don't like. Obviously, you're going to get some people that are just always negative and so on, but start to listen to what the majority of people are telling you, and usually they're right in what they're pointing out, and what people are saying, can you do this, you know, do a tutorial, how did you do this? If that's usually what the demand is, so listen to that, and then that may determine the way the channel grows, because you may have one idea of how you want to grow your channel, but it may end up going in an entirely different direction. But just sort of go with what the demand is.
Final question. This is a non-hobby question, which I've started to ask a lot of people. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Well, see, ham and pineapple is my favourite topping, actually. So I'm a big pizza fan, and that's my number one. If there's a list in a restaurant, that's the one that I would take. So that's your answer.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
It does belong on there. No problem at all.
Okay. This has been an amazing experience for myself and for everyone, I'm sure, hearing yourself. being interviewed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Good talking to you. Thanks very much, and pleasure to be on your channel. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
So a massive thanks to Luke for taking part in this Community Spotlight interview. If you're new here, welcome. If you're old here, welcome back. It's been very good this series so far. We've got some more coming up. There's a playlist in the end screen. If you like this sort of stuff, normal procedure I guess, like, comment and subscribe for some more stuff, and smash the bell for our next release coming soon.